Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Property to Prosperity. As I'm actually walking the ground and reaching out to many of my clients and also doing some resale listings and showings, I actually noticed that there seems to be a lot of buyers out there right now, considering whether they should go for a new launch, but the price may be out of reach, or should they actually choose a resale property since it seems like it's more supply and the prices may be more enticing. So today, as I am preparing for this topic, right, the thing that's running through my mind is, how can I better help those buyers who are watching this right now consider the things to look out for if today you are looking for a resale property? And most importantly, we're going to use a real-life example of what my clients has actually went through so that we can actually pick up some of the things that you could have avoided when you're actually buying a property for yourself. So today's topic is about how you cannot lose money in a property purchase and what are the 3 costly mistakes you must avoid when you are selecting a property. Let's take a look at this live example as I mentioned earlier. This is a development in Forte Suites. So for those of you who are living in District 8 or nearby there, you would have noticed that there seems to be a lot of supply in District 8 itself nearer to Little India. And if you are someone who is searching on Property Guru, you may find out that there seems to be a lot of affordable properties there for selection. In fact, I have a few clients who actually make some purchases over there because they felt that with the same budget of 1.2 million, they could get a relatively bigger size. So back to this Forte Suites, this was one of the transactions that my client has unfortunately made during the time that I don't know them yet. And the reason why I want to share this real-life example with all of you is because it's actually very close to my heart when I'm working alongside with my client, as I see that she felt really very regretful for making these costly mistakes. So with this, let me show you which is the unit that she has actually entered into. And in fact, this is the one that is 678 square feet and it's a 2-bedder that is sitting at 1.268 upon purchase. And in fact, for a period of almost 5 years of holding, she actually sold it at 1.16 million. In fact, when I met her that time, she has already changed agent twice before I could finally help her to sell off. So having said that, with a lot of painstakingly effort that we have done, we managed to help her offload the property, but at an unfortunate loss of 108,000. Now this 108,000 on paper may seem quite painful for any first-time investor, and I'm sure you feel the same as well. Because the thing we want to ask ourselves is, can we actually avoid this loss? Because nobody wants to enter into a property feeling that they have lost money. Therefore, let's look at the reason why she actually chose to purchase Forte Suites the last time. Well, during the time when she was looking around for real estate or property to invest, there's this special treat that the developer has offered for any buyers out there during that time in the year 2017 that you may have heard it before. It's called Guaranteed Rental Return. So this guaranteed rental return, the developer promised my client that, she will get 4,000 of rental every single month for the next 2 years. So for anyone who is thinking of investing, the first thing that comes to our mind is, this looks like a good deal, because I have guaranteed rental for 4,000 all the way for my next 2 years, and that definitely can cover my monthly mortgage, and basically the property just self-financed by itself. Sounds just about right? So the question is, it seems like it makes sense, and that's why she went to purchase. Then later does she actually realize that she has not been doing essential homework to ask herself if it's really making sense or not. So let me break down for you the actual cost of holding to let you see whether this is really something you will want to go in or not. Because since you are looking around for a property, I believe we will need to also do our basic sums. And later on, the second part of my sharing, I will be sharing with you 3 things that you must look out for when you are buying your own resale property, either for own stay or even for investment. So back to my client, the cost of holding that she has actually incurred during this 4.5 to 5 years of holding, as I mentioned earlier, she's actually getting 4,000 a month of guaranteed rental, and that gave her about 96,000 for the next 2 years. And moving forward, the end of the promise is over. So at year 3 and year 4, she realized that the rental actually dropped drastically and she had quite a hard time trying to rent it out. Earlier, I also mentioned to you, for those who are familiar with Little India's area, This area has tons of boutique developments, a lot of projects there that you can always find plentiful of supply. So with that, of course, it will have affected the rental. Therefore, when she, got hit back to reality, she realized that 2008 was the maximum rent that she could get herself for during that time. And total rent that she has received for year 3 and 4, she has gotten $67,200. Now, we also need to less off some of the essential costs of holding, such as the total interest incurred over the next 4 years is approximately $80,000 because she took up the maximum 75% loan. And during that time, the interest rates, she took a fixed interest rate of 2.35%. Next, total property tax that is paid. For those of you who are thinking how to calculate your property tax, what you have to do is you just have to tell yourself that you need to set aside the 1 month rental for your every year's property tax. So technically, if you are buying a property to rent out, it is actually very important for you to take out 1 month of rental to set aside. And bear in mind that the next 11 months of rental that you are receiving, you also need to offset another almost 1 month of rental to pay off for the maintenance fee. Then the net rent that you're actually taking back will usually be 10 months if it's a 1-year contract. So back to my client, actually the total maintenance fee that she has paid over this cost of holding is about $19,200. So if I take all the revenue that she has received to offset the cost that she has to pay out, the balance net revenue became $50,400. So for a total period of 4 years, 4.5 years thereabout, she realized that actually she's only taking back $50,400. So this is already one of the red flags that I hope you can look out for. And if you are viewing your house with your agent, I also strongly encourage you to get your agent to break down this for you. It's very simple to understand, to give you some heads up on, is this the amount that you will be happy with? Does it make sense? And is the rental yield even able to meet up to 4%? Which unfortunately for my client, it is not. As if you average out the rental, you realize that it's too low. So next one, the question we also want to ask ourselves is, okay, since we are getting about $50,400 of net revenue, that means if I'm holding this for a period of 4 to 4.5 years, I'm actually having about 10-ish thousand every year for my net revenue. So 10-ish thousand may not sound a lot. Therefore, we need to fall back on the capital gain to substantiate for my total investment value. But for her, as I mentioned earlier, she didn't manage to get any gains out of it. In fact, she had 108,000 of loss. So with 108,000 of loss, the next thing we need to know is what actually caused the loss. In my earlier sharing in my TikTok, I actually have a few sharing with my TikTok friends that I have another few of my clients for HDB. They have actually hold on to their property for more than 20 years or 15 years onwards. The property is already fully paid, but their accrued interest can accumulate up to like 100,000 to 200,000, resulting in negative sales. So for my client, fortunately for her, we were able to help her to offload in 4 years. But there's still loss incurred because why? She actually used a total amount of $389,000 for CPF refund. So having said that, the total ordinary account that she has used in this cost of holding in this period, about 4.5 years, is $352,000. But the accrued interest actually accumulated up to about $36,000, which is actually quite scary for most of us because this is an additional interest that eats into our profit, or rather our cash. And that's why this interest will keep on rolling with the fact that we will keep using it for our mortgage every time. So as we use our mortgage, as we use our CPF to pay for our mortgage every month, we are also accumulating more accrued interest that we need to put back, and this is really a rat race. So for those of you who is actually thinking of, maybe I want to buy a property for investment, maybe the rental that's coming in kind of makes sense, but cannot really cover my mortgage fully at the moment. But in return, I will have a property that can have big gains, then you probably can still average out to see your year-on-year returns. But if the question is you are not even very sure that this is a confident move because you know that the rental is not strong, and then you have to somewhat use a lot of your CPF to finance that house, then my advice is it is important to make sure you choose your property carefully so that you don't fall into this trap and realize at the end of the day you cannot sell at a good price, at the end of the day you have to sell at a loss, And eventually, the loss also affected your CPF accrued interest, resulting in even more losses in your CPF. So one hand, you have no more cash to take back. The other hand, you have to have CPF losses, which will affect your next buying affordability too. So in summary for my client, the final financial breakdown for her sale became a sale price of 1.16 million minus a loan of 900,000 at that time when I was selling for her, less of a total CPF refunds of 389,000 with a balance of negative 89,000. So this balance of 89,000, she had literally 89,000 of negative CPF. So if you do your sums, you'll realize that at this point of time, if she has to refund 389,000, but she had 89,000 of CPF loss, her actual CPF ready for the next property purchase became 300,000 only. And definitely there's no cash for her to take back, unfortunately. Lucky for her, she had a net revenue of 50,000. And by now, we will have all know that anyone who has rental income, most of us will not have diligently set it aside. We will definitely spend it off. So when I meet her, she was telling me she already spent off everything that she has gotten for rental because she needs to pay for the bills, she needs to bring the family for holiday, and there are just expenses, especially in Singapore. So technically, she is back to ground zero with a negative loss of 89,000 with no cash to take back. And if I break down even more, the net shortfall that she has gotten is about 38,400 if she will not have spent off the 50,000. So next question is, can this actually be avoided? Because I am very, very worried when I was looking at this number for her. And for the longest time, these numbers keep ringing in my head because I don't just see her case, I also see a few more other of my clients' case and ask myself, today if I don't do this video to share with all of you, my biggest concern is we will end up just going through the motion and buying a property just because we felt that, oh, it's a good location, it's next to MRT, it's cheap, it's spacious, layout seems okay, then you go in and buy, then you realize that actually it's very hard to sell and eventually you get stuck with the property, you cannot move on to the next step, or rather even the rental cannot cover your mortgage, then it becomes a liability. So we really want to try to avoid this kind of situation as best as we can by trying to do a little more homework, which is the next part that I'm going to share with you, the 3 costly mistakes I want you to avoid when you are selecting your investment property. The very first one is, let's look at Forte Suites. Let's understand one of the general or basic thing that you must know. If today you're buying a property, try to avoid a property that is only a very small size development. Like for instance, if you want to play around with numbers, I would strongly encourage you to go into URA or ask your agents, or if you don't have anyone, you can let me know. We can do property analysis for you to see whether is this property really worth it to enter into. Because why? I can't say that all properties that are of this size will not make money. Or rather, I would say that it is only one of the very entry-level assessments if you are someone who is noob with property. So with a 106 unit property, most of the time we should be expecting is a very dramatic chart. So if you go into URA to retrieve the ideal condo that you are thinking of buying, it is important for you to track back the past 10 years record to see what are the take-up rate for the type of bedroom you are looking at, and also how is the transactional flow. Is it an upwards trend or is there a very big gap? Later on, I will show you what I actually mean, but take a look out for this kind of sizes, or even like probably double-digit ones. Double-digit ones, I think most people will understand. Those that are actually on 100 to about 250 units. Sometimes there will be this group of my clients who will be not too sure whether is it still safe or not. And if this is also one of your questions, go into URA, check out the transactional volume and also the charts, which I'll show you later, to ascertain if the demand over there is strong and also the price is stable or not. So the reason why you actually need bigger amount of units, like maybe more than 250, is because we know that most of the owner, or in fact 99.9% of the owner, do want to sell higher than the previous seller. Having said that, we now know that sellers have this element. That's why property prices will keep going up. especially within the development itself. All owners, if you're watching, you would have known that every time when you want to sell your unit, you will look at all the pamphlets, the flyers, and even check out the recent transaction in your area to see whether can you price your property higher than what is last sold. Make sense? So as such, if you only have 100 to 250 units, the amount of volume that you're expecting for the selling or sellers who want to sell may not be that many. And the take-up rate because of the scale of development may not be many also because the facility over there could be just a one building thing. So if it's a one building condo with just a mere pool and a very mini gym, the chances of people who actually like the unit and feel emotionally impulsive to want to buy would be greatly reduced. So therefore, this may not be a very safe buy for buyers who is thinking of buying if you are looking at numbers for investment. As cheap as it can be, let me share with you another way you must look at it to justify, known as the price gap. So second thing is, in 40 suites alone, you may realize that what is all around here, right, are all the boutique developments. There may be one or two maybe slightly larger developments such as like Cityscape and those that are further down. But within 40 suites alone, surrounding there are all the boutique developments. And anyone who is trying to sell there, including myself when I'm selling, is to just upsell it and say rental is good, because if you track back the record, it's endless, it's a lot. But the rental prices does not increase with each year. In fact, there are years that it actually fall. So lots of supply may not be able to keep up with the demand, and you have lots of competitor when you're trying to rent, which is the reason why you may realize the movement is quite slow. Hence, it affected your selling price or demand. Next, the very first thing to avoid is if you are promised a strong rental by whoever is selling you this property, it does not mean actually you have good exit plan. Very simple to understand is if you open up the master plan, you will look at the actual orange colored plots that you can see right now. And all these orange colored plots are all zoned for residential. And for 40 suites alone, if you zoom in to where 40 suites is, all around here are actually pretty much full already, which means there is no way any other future plot of land will have pushed up the price because you are pretty much full. All around you are already established. So this is also the next topic that I will be sharing in my next video, known as the adjacent parcel effect, which is to give you a very simple to understand concept when you go into buying a real estate. Because even for us as agents, we also want to always ask ourselves, where is the exit plan? Can I see my property being able to appreciate steadily over the years? If my property cannot give me the assurance that it can appreciate steadily over the years, then I may hold back. Because my plots of land around me, I'm probably the last plot there, and if not, then I'll have to depend on the next market cycle to push up my price. Then what if I'm stuck with the property? What if my rental cannot cover me? Then will I have a situation where I have to just pay the mortgage with all my cash? Then I will be very concerned because that is not the whole idea of a property investment. So for 40 suites alone, earlier I shared with you that strong rental doesn't mean good exit plan. If you look at 40 suites alone, you can realize that when my client actually entered with the 4,000 guaranteed rental return, she actually gets to enjoy about $5 per square feet for her 678 square feet two-bedder unit. Then, once the guaranteed rental return is over, pretty much the rest of the development all face the reality of the standard rental there. So this standard rental means that rental literally dropped drastically to stay within the $4 plus minus range, and that's why from 4,000 it dropped to 2,008. So the truth is, actually if you track back the last records earlier, all along the rental in 40 suites has around $4. It has hardly gone up to $5. So not all good deals, not that everything that is cheap means it's good. You do have to take note of all these trends and understand them and see the average rental amount per square feet to determine if what they promise you is correct or not. Second, I also seen quite a lot of my clients, they also share with me that 1 year or 1.5 years back, rental has been very strong. why is it that actually rental dropped so much now? So if you actually think about this question, I do want you to also think a little bit deeper, because in everything that we do, there's these two elements called the inflation and also the market correction. So before the market correction, there will always be a sign that market is going a little bit like haywire before it starts correcting itself to the regulated price, be it resale price or be it rental. During the time at 1.5 years back and before, in 2022 to 2024, which is over here, you realize that rental actually surged a lot. Not just for Forte Suites, but for most of the condos pretty much outside. Because of the market sentiments during that time, supply was low. During that time, market was unstable. People cannot travel, they have to be in Singapore. At the same time, the number of housing supply in the market is insufficient to meet up to the sudden increased demand. That's why for the next 2 years, everyone who has a property at that time enjoy fantastic rental yield. But there will be one day when it has to correct. It is impossible for rental to stay buoyant like that with such a big jump and keep going up. So that's why you realize there's this big jump that the market went up, and then after that it pretty much come down to stabilize. This is usually the standard from most of the condos, and I really want you to be able to get used to reading all these numbers, because today you're buying a property for investment. You also want to know what is the average rental here. You also want to see the worst case scenario to ask yourself, if let's say market corrects again, are you able to handle this base amount of rental coming in? Will this base amount of rental coming in cost you liability? If this is not going to cost you liability, then it's great for you to take up the unit. But if you add in another layer of, am I buying in at the right price? Then this is the part you need to be even more careful and ask your agent to help you to go in and check. Because for my client, one of the reasons why she suffered a loss is because when she entered at about 1,009 plus minus per square feet. And at the time as she was buying that unit, the market couldn't support 1,009 or higher range of 1,008 per square feet. The market could only support an average of about 1,004 to 1,005 per square feet. This is in comparison to Forte Suites on top and the whole of District 8 at that time. So in District 8 alone, the general trend there are going at about 1,005, 1,004, that range. Whilst my client, who took in the guaranteed rental return, didn't realize that she is actually paying a premium for the entry. So there is also some other example. Another of my clients, she bought Eon at Shenton. When she bought Eon at Shenton, she also missed this step. And end up when she bought it, the developer also promised her guaranteed rental return of 4,005 at that time. And she went in at 2,007 per square feet, which is exorbitant because at that time when she entered, the average prices around her was only about 2,002 to 2,003, thereabout. So she actually bought about 500 per square feet higher than her neighbors. That's why when she has to sell it, she couldn't, because it suffered so much losses that there's no way for her to move forward. Plus the CPF accrued interest that she has been accumulating, despite it was fully paid, resulted in her having negative sales. So till date, after 3 years, she is still stuck with the property. So do be mindful. Check your rental average and ask yourself the worst case scenario rental amount. Is this something that you can be able to tide over should the market corrects? Second, check your entry price. Are you actually buying at a higher PSF, significantly higher than the others? If you ask me for a rule of thumb, my suggestion is about maximum 20% and lesser. So ideally is if you're buying as a new launch, it should be about 15 to maximum 20%. Okay? If you were to break down into per square feet, if it's a resale versus your new launch that you're buying in, 200 PSF gap should be quite okay, but not 5 to 600 PSF gap. That's too much. Got it? So in summary for this, the large price gap may cause you to have no exit strategy, which then resulted in a high-risk situation, and I want you to avoid this at all costs, because I'm sure there's going to be other better projects out there for you to consider instead of taking up this situation. And for those of you who are watching this and you are also considering looking out for resale, but you're really unsure whether what are the actual steps you should be looking at to ensure you don't buy at a premium, to ensure you are able to calculate your exit move, how much gains are you going to get, and you don't know how to go about, you can leave me a message and I will definitely reach out to you to assist you for that. Second mistake to avoid. Let's look at this layout, which is the same layout that my client buy. I told her also that your layout selection is terrible. Because why? When she made this property purchase, she didn't think too much of it. But I want you to think a bit more because there's the whole idea of why am I doing this video, right? So I want you to look at this space called the jacuzzi. This jacuzzi on floor plan doesn't look big, but believe me, when I was there, I was a bit shocked. Because the jacuzzi is not like a planter where you can just deck it over and use it. This jacuzzi is literally like a mini pool that is very deep, and if it rains, there will be a situation where there will be mosquitoes. So you have to always maintain the jacuzzi because if not, there will be mosquito breeding, which it really happened at the time when I went to see. And also, I also noticed that the drainage, because of the weather and also leaf and dust and hair, etc., actually clogged up the whole drainage. So to maintain this jacuzzi and the pump to make sure it's working is additional cost for any consumer there, unless you totally hacked off the jacuzzi or you just permanently seal up the whole jacuzzi and not even think about just decking alone, because decking can accumulate water. So for those of you who want to visualize this, let's think of like a normal 3-bedder balcony. So a normal 3-bedder balcony, imagine half of it is the jacuzzi. Very deep, like a mini pool, but you can't use it. Do you think this may actually affect the sellability of this particular unit? That is red flag number 1. So I would say this is one of the inefficient function that you could have avoided when you select your property. How about the other part that you have to know is, this part, if you realize bedroom 2, has a very tiny window that has very limited light and wind coming in. So for layout selection, it is extremely important for you to ensure that both your bedrooms have enough window panels, or rather the whole stretch if possible, so that anyone who is staying at bedroom 2 will still find it pleasant to live in and not feel very dark or claustrophobic in a very enclosed space. Although it seems like the bedrooms are big, you may also realize that for this suite's layout has a bit of defect because you have to enter into bedroom 2, walk in before you can actually access your home shelter. So you cannot access your home shelter through the main door here, but you actually have to walk in here, go in here, go in here to access your home shelter. So look at the fine details when you're doing your layout selection, because you may think that, oh, Kelly, this is common sense right now. But trust me, when you're actually at certain areas selecting a layout, and especially if the unit is very nicely done up, this will be the last thing on your mind because you will not be looking at the fine details. So do look out for this, the efficiency of your accessibility to your home shelter, if there's any. And also imagine if you're staying inside, is this the convenient way of doing it? Is this something that most people will also want in terms of the way they do their storage? Because if not, you will end up overlooking this and having a harder time to sell because buyers will give you such objections, which I really had during that time when I'm selling. And given I'm the third agent who was selling. Second thing will be the window, to make sure that both rooms are well lit with ample window panels so that you have ample light coming in, even in the way they are oriented, and also they have good views, ideally. One more thing for Forte Suite is, actually this is one of the rooms that is very dark because this is actually facing another block. So if you have a room that is facing another block, it means that you have a very small window and you don't have ample sunlight coming in. So try not to also have this because it also affects the livable demand of your future buyers. So moving forward, now if you're looking for a 2-bedder, we are now very accustomed to the fact that we will have kitchenette. So I wouldn't say this is one of a very big factor to deter buyers or something that you cannot buy if you see this. But if you actually have an option to have an enclosable kitchen, then that would be fantastic. There's a lot of new harmonized project right now if you're looking for. then you start realizing that developers are now being more creative the way they do the harmonized project and make sure it's an enclosable kitchen or kitchen that is tucked away in one corner so that you can actually use it with ease and you can close it up with a sliding door if you want. So those are the layout that is the latest trend, and if you can see this in the resale market, this will definitely be a good plus point. And one more essential thing that you want to take note of is the width of your walkway. I also get it that it is inevitable for two-beders to have walkways that are longer. So you may want to also ask yourself, can I do something like a shoe cabinet here? And if the answer is yes, then it shouldn't be too bad of a layout. It's only the width of this because Forte Suites is quite narrow. So there are developments that have wider width that can allow you to walk with ease and you won't feel so claustrophobic. So if you have that kind of layout for two-bedder, that's great. So technically, this will be the few very important things you must look out for when you do layout selection. And then the last thing for layout selection is try to retrieve the floor plan from your surrounding competitors. Meaning, for every project that you want to buy, look at the floor plans around your development to pull out and ask yourself, does your development has special advantage to the layout? When your development has special advantage to the layout, what you can expect is that when people come and see the other development and then they come and see yours, they will realize actually your unit is so much better, more breezier, brighter, more efficient, and ample sunlight and no wastage of space, etc. And unlike my neighbors, they are like that. So do take this step as well, because I notice a lot of my resale buyers don't do this step. They just see the project as it is, think about it and take it up. So when it comes to investment, we cannot do like this because you want to make sure you have an unfair advantage when you want to put it for resale. Of course, for rental, it doesn't really matter because most important is the number of bedrooms and are your bedrooms big enough. But as for sellability, it is important to look at all this. So let's put the layout side by side to see, does Forte Suites have unfair advantage, which by now we all know it doesn't, but why? So the one on the right is Cityscape. Cityscape is just right beside Forte Suites, and they're also TOP around the same time because it's TOP 2014 versus Forte Suites TOP early 2016. So for a development that's about 1 year-ish apart, this is what a buyer will be looking at. When they come to Forte Suites, they will see it's a 678 square feet unit. And then with jacuzzi as one of the problems, with the bedroom here being darker, with access to home shelter, these are the 3 red flags that the buyer will feel maybe it's not very good. But it cannot affirm it until they go and see Cityscape, which is beside. And most buyers does do that because they will want to look at what's surrounding here as well. And the moment they enter Cityscape, they may realize actually very efficient. Why? Because the home shelter is right beside the entrance. This makes it so much easier and more functional for any people who is thinking of buying, either for investment or for own stay. And as I mentioned, the kitchen is nicely tucked away at one side with enclosable sliding door and also a window. So this is extremely important because it's very hard for you to find a two-bedder that has actually window in the kitchen, and Cityscape happened to be one of the development that has this efficient layout. Next, you also realize that there's a stipulated proper dining area here without eating into the living room, plus a decent balcony here that is squarish. Over here, although it's a planter is easy for you to do your decking, unlike a jacuzzi, which is literally like a pool that you have to do so much more to maintain. And although the bedroom 2 is smaller than bedroom 2 in Forte Suites, it is still able to put a queen-size bed, still able to do a cabinet here, with walking space around. So yes, it may look smaller, but actually if you look at Forte Suites, you realize my client has to put like a queen-size bed here, which is extremely cramped, in order to not block the walkway to the home shelter. And there's no way for my client to put a wardrobe. They have to eventually use the home shelter as a walk-in closet for the tenant that they rent out to. So see the difference? Next, also for the master bedroom, you also realize that the master bedroom, bathroom and all this actually tucked away nicely in one side. And then although the master bedroom may not be as big as the Forte Suites master bedroom, at least it doesn't open up to a jacuzzi. At least, you know, your balcony is within your living area. There's no wastage of space. And if you are buying a unit in Forte Suites, you may realize that the moment you open your master bedroom sliding door and you don't close off your jacuzzi, you will have no way to access this. So layout selection is important. Check your competitor to see if your layout is as efficient as you think it could be. So last thing, and one of the very important thing I would say, is CPF accrued interest versus your rate of gain. Now why? Okay, let me give you an example. For example, let's say this time around my client actually have a base amount of 278,000 when she put down her down payment. And based on year 1 accrued interest, it will have accumulated to 6,950 just on the interest portion. Which means that in year 1, when my client pay her down payment, etc., you realize the total CPF refund become 284 because of the accrued interest. Along each year as it comes, you may now realize that the accrued interest eventually, if I add them up just on the interest portion alone, will add up to about 9,500. So why do I want to share this with you? Because today we want to buy a property. We also want to make sure as we use our CPF and also understanding that there's this element of accrued interest, I want to be able to balance it with my property's rate of growth. So if my property's rate of growth is not able to justify for my interest in due time when I sell, resulting in I have to take up the risk that maybe because of my accrued interest, I have to refund so much more CPF inside and I might suffer a negative sale, then it is not good. So how to tell? Ensure that your property actually have minimally 3% growth per annum. By now you have realized it, by now I'm sure all of us will know 2.5% per annum is the CPF accrued interest. And it is pegged to your OAUs, right? But for real estate, the quantum is bigger because it's 1/1,000,000 of purchase price. And if today you're buying a property that your agent or yourself is extremely confident that there's going to be a minimum 3% if it's a new launch, 5% of growth annually, then you pretty much set yourself at a very safe start. Why? Because CPF accrued interest is 2.5%. Your property with that kind of quantum still has 3% minimum growth per annum, will ensure that you are able to cover your CPF accrued interest way more than you could have. So that's very safe. And second, we also need to include the cost of holding. So let me give you some perspective. For instance, for my client, when she entered Forte Suites at 1.268, as I mentioned earlier, she took out a bank loan of 951,000, and this is supposed to be the rate of growth if she have chosen a good property, or rather a estate property that's more stable. The projected property growth would have been 117,000 if Forte Suites is able to grow 3% per annum based on her purchase price. So unfortunately, because all the consideration that she has overlooked, it has resulted in her having 168,000 of losses. So that is what I'm actually trying to share with you. So do run your numbers, add in this 3% minimum property growth that you should at least have when you sell, and make sure that you have done your numbers, your comparison, factoring in your interest, that for her case, for a holding period of 3 years, she would have accumulated to about 66,000 of cost of holding, as well as maintenance fee around 14,000. I'm putting it about 400 a month, and also property tax about 12,000 because averaging we use the property around there. And then if you look at this, although she has 117,000 of property growth for 3% per annum, at the end of it, she also only less off her 94,000 of cost of holding. So that will only give her a net profit of 23,000. This is the bare minimum the property must still be able to do if you are looking for a property that has at least good rental yield. Next, you have to also ask yourself, with this price that I'm entering into, can I see myself being able to sell at this amount in the next 3 years? And how can I justify this selling price? Can I justify this selling price by nearby transaction? Because I know I'm buying lower than what is transacting around if you're looking for a resale. Or I'm buying at a lower price and I'm the newest development and I have a few more plot of land around me that can help me to push up my price with plot ratio of 2, 2.5 and above, which is a larger scale development, that kind of stuff. Then that will also be another area of protection for your property investment. And also your layout selection, so that you know that as much as I have a safe property growth in terms of future exit, I also have unfair advantage for my layout. And I also can see myself being able to handle the shaken property rental amount if market really shifts, because I've seen the worst case scenario and I think I can make do with that. So if all of this is a yes, then you are pretty much set to go for the resale property that you select. And back to my client, today if you're also in a situation that what I've shared with you, you're also a dilemma in a state where, oh, it's very cheap, 1.1 million, I can get a big two-bedder there, 1.2 million, I can see myself entering at a very comfortable mortgage, I don't mind this location, and etc., then go for it. But of course, there's also a better way that we can work around it if you want to have a combination of space, a combination of safe entry price, and also good layout. So what could my client do instead? At the same time as she's thinking of buying a property, Forte Suite is not the only development that is for sale. Just like all of us when we are buying something, I'm very sure there's plenty of options in the market. So because we know that there's plenty of options in the market, the question to ask ourselves is, what can I do best with my money? And if my client today, as she's looking for a property at that time, choose to take a look at Sims Urban Oasis, which is around the same year, a few months prior to her purchase, and she has went to see Sims Urban Oasis, same thing, a two-bedder, and also a purchase price that is lower than what she would have entered into, because for Forte Suite, she bought it at 1.268, right? But for Sims Urban Oasis, the buyer actually managed to go in a two-bedder of a 700 square feet at only 900 to 1 million. It's about the same time as she is buying. So had it not been for the guaranteed rental return that she has not done her numbers properly, and she just go to Sims Urban, in the similar duration of holding for about 5 years to 6 years, she would have also gotten 200,000 plus of gains steadily during this course of holding. Now, I know there are some projects that can make money within 3 to 4 years. But today, if you are not inclining to go for a new launch, the question is, can I still have good buys in a resale market? The answer is yes. That is the reason why you need to look at nearby transaction. You need to look at the trend and how much you are going into to justify if it's safe. So for Sims Urban Oasis, for my client, she's buying in as a first owner for Forte Suites. And also for Sims Urban, is also a first owner. You can see the difference with one losing 106,000 and the other one having 200 over thousand of gain with similar holding period, difference by probably about 1 year. Would this be even much safer for her? So what is about Sims Urban Oasis? Earlier I also shared with you that the size or the number of units available in a development will give you a very good stepping stone for stability in gains. So that is actually what I mean, because for Sims Urban compared to Forte Suites only have 106 units. But for Sims is actually 1,024 units, which is 10 times more than what Forte Suites is. And as expected, you will be seeing very good facilities, clubhouse, nice gym, nice pool and stuff like that. So it becomes more livable and more comfortable and more exciting for any buyers who want to buy in the resale market. At the same time, it's also a RCR similar with Forte Suites. So with both being in the RCR, one get to enter at 1 million, while the other has to buy at 1.268, which is very, very big difference. That's the reason why I mentioned it may not be safe for her as well as for you. So do check your transactional price. Second, also for Sims Urban, there is actually an exit plan. Why? Because as those buyers who is buying Sims Urban, they notice that there's an empty plot of land right beside Sims Urban. And the likelihood of this plot of land being a condo is rather high because it's not too big a plot to do a BTO. As you know, BTO does generally need a bigger plot, perhaps like this. But for condo itself, this kind of size usually for residential will be likely a condo. The odds are high. So with that, when Sims Urban Oasis purchased, I'm very sure the buyers will have been informed that there is a future plot of land here, it will likely push up your price. Question, is it really true? So let's take a look. For Sims Urban Oasis, for those buyers who bought in the year 2017, they will have entered at about 1,004 per square feet. And before the launch of Penrose, they have already seen a gain of 22%. Due to the 1,024 units, the price will inch up. This is how the developer does their pricing strategy. But that's not the key. The key is it doesn't stop there. Why? Because although during 2020, it seems to show a bit of correction in terms of the price trend, after Penrose is introduced with this pink one as a Penrose, you realize that Sims Urban actually picked up in terms of their selling price. So this is what a buyer or any one of you should be looking at, because this is what I mean by stable growth. Later on, I'll share with you a different chart that Forte Suites will be having. So this stable growth will be what you can expect if you today have an empty plot of land that is similar plot ratio as what you are buying into. With that, the buyer who entered in 2017 with 1,004 per square feet has actually seen a 22% of growth when they exit in the year 2022, exiting at about 1,007 per square feet. So for investors or buyers in the market, look out for this sign. Make sure that you have exit plan before you rush into buying. Don't just look at the purchase price. Second, the entry price for Sim Urban, which is the line in blue, as compared to the same district prices, are very close. If you take a look at this in 2017, the buyer who bought in 2017 actually may have already noticed that the price gap is only 6% as compared to the rest of the condo in District 14 when they are buying. So this is to share with you that this is what I mean by very, very healthy entry price that you can go into. So look out for price gap to ascertain if this is a safe amount that you can enter into, because surrounding transactions are able to support this kind of benchmark. And for you as a new one to go higher, the odds are higher than a very big gap. So this is a good sign for you to really consider. Now, how about layout? If you take a look at layout, Sims Urban, which TOP in 2017 versus Penrose TOP in 2025, as mentioned earlier, layout is actually also very efficient. Why? Because for Sims Urban, there's actually this entrance here that you can do your shoe cabinet, which I've seen my clients actually doing it who are selling. And as you enter here, you realize that there's this space that you can do for a dining area and an L-shaped kitchen that kind of feels like a bit more luxurious because it's tucked away in one side with a L-shape rather than the usual kitchenette that is longish. Similarly, in terms of living to balcony, there's also no space wastage because there's actually a very livable environment floor plan for upgraders or even young couples to go into. So it's not too much difference also with Penrose, because Penrose is actually a dumbbell layout. So I would say that this is actually quite an efficient layout that buyers who actually go into this will find it very safe and comfortable to go in, because it's 900 plus to a million at that time. So in summary, after sharing so much with all of you, I think by now we will be able to identify that we should not fall into anyone who promises you high rental in this area, because this is not the only determining factor for you to decide on one property. It is very pleasing and easy to accept that, oh, this place is good rental I should buy because I can collect rental. But the truth is, it doesn't mean your rental yield is strong will give you good exit strategy. I've got one client who bought Roy's Residence as well. Roy's Residence is in Geylang. During that time when he bought, he had a hard time selling and he'd been enjoying very good rental. So much so that he even enhanced the unit, have a roof terrace that he did tentage for the tenant because his is a penthouse. And he has been enjoying like about 4,000 kind of range for a rental in Geylang. So it is a one-bedder penthouse. So for one-bedder penthouse, 4,000, he really loves it. He feels that this is very decent. I could use this 4,000 to pay for my rental elsewhere because he has fully paid this Roy's Residence. But when we're trying to sell it, this place just does not have exit plan. So pretty much suitable for people who just want to collect rental as passive income and park their money somewhere and enter at a low price. But not safe for anyone who thinks in the next 3 to 5 years they think of exiting, because that will become a problem. They either have to sell cheaper so that the next buyer who is looking for investment will find it exciting because it's cheap and rental yield is high and does not have intention to flip. If not, upgraders, family, they will not buy a boutique development that is about only 50 units And even if it's good rental, the layout is not functional and kind of feels like a hotel more than a own stay. So that's why the demand actually reduced greatly. And for Roy's residents, for those of you who are familiar around there, when he bought, he thought that is potential for en bloc. So yes, you may have also heard about people telling you, why don't you just buy a unit that has potential for en bloc? Because then you can enjoy the en bloc. But the truth is, do you know when they will en bloc? If you want to hold it for 10 years to try it out, can you ask yourself, are you okay if you don't en bloc? Because if the answer is no, then don't even try, because the risk is very high. So back to your exit plan. How to ensure your exit is safe? Go into this concept known as adjacent parcel, which is future plot of land to push up your price, and it must be of similar plot ratio. Also, check your price gap upon your entry time, upon your purchase. If you're buying a new launch, 20% and lesser is great. If you're buying a resale, try to buy at a very close price gap, maybe between 5 to 8%. If it's a very new one compared to slightly older one, I think that's acceptable. And also, lastly, and very logically, check your layout carefully. If again you are not sure whether this layout is efficient or not because it's too much work to go into my nearby competitors and check all their layouts, check all their sizes, check all their gains, and you find it too much hassle, we always have reports that we generate for our clients for them before they make any decision, and I guess that could also be some help to you. And then lastly, think about who will be buying from you in future. Who are your buyer's pool? If you are not even sure who will be your buyer's pool, logically, not emotionally, then it is also a red flag to you, because for whatever reason, as you're buying this area, as a buyer who like this area, we will justify that, oh, next time there will be people buying from me lah. Maybe people who is working around here, they will buy from me. But can you make sense of it? Can the numbers make sense? Can the surrounding properties that you're buying from will help to elevate your property that you're buying because you're younger, because your layout is better, because it suits the buyer pool around you? For example, if you're buying a unit in Sengkang, Punggol, you cannot get a two-bedder because two-bedder there will not move. Neither should you get a two-bed plus study, because that area two-bed plus study also may have some challenge with selling. So you need to get as big a size as you can for an environment that you know there are plenty of upgraders. So similarly, if you're getting an area that is more towards the RCR zone, towards the CCR zone, then sometimes a smaller unit might be better, because these are the units that young couples may not mind staying. There might be elite schools around for couples who have their kid for the first time, so probably a family of 3, or maybe with a helper, so a helper's room is important. So this thought process must run through your mind to ascertain your possible buyer pool, to decide if the layout that you're buying from and the exit price in future, does it justify and does it make sense? Alright, so for those of you who are still watching my video until now, you will also be very excited, I'm sure, to learn more about how can you better strategize your current property portfolio. No matter if you're a first-time buyer, you're an upgrader, or you're thinking of diversifying your portfolio, I would strongly encourage you to consider this upcoming Property Wealth Masterclass that our PropNext is offering. It is a limited tickets. But if you are interested to see if I could seize some tickets for you or your family or your friends, feel free to hit me up and I will tell you more about this Wealth Masterclass. It is very cheap. It is not like the classes outside that you have to pay thousands of dollars. It is a non-profitable masterclass that our company wants to share with all of you. It's 2 days, and they will go through the whole process of how do you start accumulating your wealth, how do you advance into growing towards a bigger assets net worth, and then going to how do you diversify your current portfolio so that you can build passive income the safe way. So if this is something that excites you and it suits what you're looking for, hit me up. I'll share with you the link so you can read up more about it to decide if you want to make time for it. And lastly, I am very happy that we have come to the end of my video. And if you would like to have more contents, scan this QR code, pause the video and scan it, and then check out on what are the other contents we do. We do quite a fair bit of analysis, comparison. We also help to share some real life case studies about clients and what they do, and some of the things that could have helped you in your property decision or journey. Or if you have some questions that you think you really need to solve, because if not, you cannot sleep, you cannot do your things, you cannot make decision, hit me up, drop me a DM. I will definitely reach out to you. And till then, see you next time.